Hello, welcome back to Leicester City Down Under. Thank you for tuning in. Today we've got Anil from For Fox's Sake TV, as always, joining us. Thank you. Neil from Beyond the 90. Good to see you, mate. And we have Kate from LTID TV.
Morning.
Guys, Kate, are you dry yet from the game yesterday?
Oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like it. It's a concern when the weather was more of a talking point than the football at times. But it disguised quite a lot as well, I think. But yeah, it was biblical. And it's one of those things you think it's a 5-minute storm, but it went on for about an hour, maybe longer. Yeah, it was a bit wet.
To say the least. Kate, I've got a question we're all dying to talk about. I don't know if you've seen the thumbnail, but I'm going to start with you, Kate, because I know that you're a lot more neutral and not as reactive as I can be. But after that game, how long do you think we should persist with having Cooper in charge as a manager? I know it's only been 5 games without a win, but we cannot financially afford to be relegated. The ramifications would be absolutely brutal with the EFL waiting to absolutely smash us if we go down there with punishments. Are you Cooper out?
No, not yet. Not for me. I think you've got to give him more than 4 games. I think at least 10 on the board to know exactly what we're dealing with here. I think yesterday I saw a bit of social media stuff about him not getting the players up for the first half because we did come out a bit lackluster. That just doesn't wash with me. If you're a Premier League footballer when you're not coming out up for every game of the week, what are you doing playing football? It's not just on the manager, it's also on the players. And I thought yesterday's halftime team talk showed that there was a change, which shows Cooper can impose a change on them. But I get the frustration as well. I think I wrote in my blog a few weeks ago that the Ricky P thing, I don't want it can't be a hill he's prepared to die on. I don't know why. That's going to really have a short lifespan with the fans because Ricky P is probably one of our most quality players outside of Vardy. And I don't get why he keeps persisting with JJ down that right when we've conceded quite a lot of goals from that right-hand side now. So the Ricky P thing is a real stinging point for me, and it's a painful one to watch at times. And also having Wilf in that high role. I mean, as much as he was great against Palace, his ball control, vision, and passing ability was poor yesterday. And I think that shows both sides of Wilf. I think he'll have a great game 1 in 10. But the rest of the time, it's like, what are you doing in that high role? Because he's just a square peg in a round hole. So I get the frustration, but I don't like knee-jerk sackings. I don't like quick sackings. It never, ever goes well. So I would just like to see his bed in. And I still think there's an Enzo hangover. I still think some of these players have still got Enzo methods in their head. So I think we just have to give him at least 10 games. That's my personal view.
Neil, I know you're dying to say something about Ndidi there. Fill me in, brother, on how you feel about a square peg in a round hole.
I don't mind him. He's got to be the right. He's a good, like for example, against Crystal Palace. The reason why he works is because that team was quite possession, and you couldn't have used the same tactics for this game because it wouldn't have worked. So I'm glad they put in. But again, we've got Buonanotte who's been brilliant every time he's come on, every time he's played. And he throws El Canutin again. It's just like the crowd can see and go, okay, do you know what? We'll give him a chance because we've bought him compared to Buonanotte. But the levels were night and day when he came on and when El Canutin came on. But we can see that as fans. It's frustrating that Cooper can't. Or again, just mentioned Ricardo was another one. And Diddy can play certain positions and has looked good, but he's getting dropping back. Fatal, we know, is the better winger we'll probably get onto compared to Jordan Ayew. And Jordan Ayew was supposed to be what everybody thought, okay, he's a good squad player to come in, to see out games, kind of like the reverse, similar to Okazaki, but as a super sub. We're not seeing that. Obviously, we're seeing Fatal getting 4 minutes. And this was our opportunity to go, look, the people that have doubted Cooper going forward, so for example, the defensive setup against Villa, which again, I understood, then we put attacking players on. There's elements of it. It's just not... It's more disappointing than like I'm not angry at it. It's just really disappointing at certain things. I'm like, we can see it and we can see what we're doing, but these are simple fixes, in my opinion, that doesn't take a lot of work. And I think it would improve the team so much more.
I 100% agree. And Neil, it seems blatantly obvious who our starters and finishers should be and our sub-rotation options. We've ranted about that enough as it is. Going by what Kate says, if we get to, let's say, 10 games and we have, let's say it's 9 games in, do you think we can afford to wait 10 games to be cut adrift from the rest of the Premier League before we can make a change?
I think if we in the bottom 3 after 10 games, I don't think it'll be even a discussion. I think the board will probably pull the trigger regardless. But we're not, so you've got to be fair. At the moment, we're in 15th. Actually, despite only getting a draw yesterday, if you look at the table, we actually ended where we started the day, which was surprising, but results elsewhere kind of went for us. It's just frustrating that if we had a win against Palace or a win yesterday, we'd be, a lot further up the table and making some significant daylight between us. I think the issue is, though, is you've got to remember that it's not just a case of like, can we afford to sack or not sack? But the thing is that if you are going to make a managerial change, you're competing against other teams in the same category. So, Wolves, they're rock bottom right now. Gary O'Neill is under huge pressure, and people are saying he's probably going to get sacked and replaced during this international break. Who do they appoint? What if they go out and appoint, for example, Graham Potter? Well, now we can't get Graham Potter because he's off the market, right? I guess you could get Gary O'Neill, but he's just been sacked. So do you want to get him? So that's a problem. And again, in the relegation season, by the time we did eventually get rid of Brendan Rodgers, who was even left on the market? So we got Dean Smith, and Dean Smith was on no one's name to be, the replacement. So that's if we're going to do it. So, but at the same time, then at the end of the day, if we finish 15th, everyone will say, regardless of the performances, job well done, we can move on. Thank you for your, and that would be considered a success. I think the worry is, though, is that, I've been showing a lot of time the underlying data, and the underlying data suggests we're actually quite lucky to have 3 points. So that's not a good position to be in. And if you're like riding on the cusp of, despair, you could be in big trouble. And we're really lucky that the PSR went for us, because otherwise we'd technically be bottom of the table and significantly behind. But I agree that I think, still 5 games is a bit early to be making rash decisions like that. But at the same time, business is ruthless, right? Sometimes in business, you've got to make a decision, even if it's going to be an unpopular one, because you've got to protect the business stroke club. Because, otherwise we didn't do that last time around 2 years ago, and we paid a very heavy price for it.
Do you think we'll learn from that, though? Sorry, Luke, but I'm not convinced that. I still think we're too nice. As a board and etc. I don't know if we'll be as ruthless, and we've learned our lesson.
Neil, what happened to Claudio Ranieri? He literally achieved the greatest feat in English football, and he was gone 6 months later because we looked like going down.
But that was so long ago now. This is a new board with a new head of director who operates in a different way. He, in fact, who was I speaking to? I was speaking to somebody, and they said that Top wanted to keep him. Top was like, no, keep Ranieri, want to stay on. And Vichai said, no, we've got to go. He's not performing. He has to go. Top was the one that was saying, please keep him on. What has he done for the club? He's more emotionally invested in the club and less business-minded than the likes of Vichai. I don't think Vichai would have got us into an FFP problem, for example.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens. But I will say that the thing is that with Brendan Rodgers, even though he obviously should have been sacked sooner than he was, to be fair, he was the first manager in the history of Leicester City Football Club to win the FA Cup. And he had seen a huge period of upwards mobility. So if ever you're going to give a chance, you could understand it. And I think a bigger concern was he was on a huge contract. Allegedly, he was the 2nd or 3rd highest paid manager in the league. So paying him off was going to be expensive. But Steve Cooper, I'm guessing he's in the bottom 5 managers in terms of their wage packet. And there might even be a clause in that contract that they can exit him early for some fixed amount. So if that's the case, that's going to be going for you. That is going to have a huge, ramification, because at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. And how much did we pay to bring Steve Cooper to the King Power would be a point. But I'll be quiet about that now.
You're right, mate. Just quickly before I ask you a question here, just to say hello to Andreas. Thank you for tuning in. Fine margins. Cooper's not good enough. I'll explain why I agree with that in a minute. Get rid of Clown Cooper now. Things won't change, and he won't change. We need him to be gone to stand a chance of staying up. We have the crew, just not the captain, to steer the boat. Kate, looking at this table here, all it would take is for one of those bottom 3 to pick up a result, and we are bang straight to the relegation zone. We are 15th, but that's kind of an illusion right now. It is early days, but we're only 2 points clear of the bottom 3. Now, looking at if I just want to go back here to our games. So after Walsall and Arsenal, okay, we have, as you can see here. So we've got Walsall, so I would expect a heavy rotation, and maybe Ricardo Pereira would be blessed with some minutes against a 3rd-tier side. And then we've got Arsenal, which we're all expecting to get spanked. And then we've got Bournemouth, okay? If we do not pick up a result,
You were really
against Bournemouth-
panicking me then. I was like, "Is Arsenal on Sunday?" And then I just realised it's your time.
No, yeah, it's my time. So
I got my train. Oh, dear.
We're supposed to get to midnight.
I know.
Oh, it's in 10 o'clock Perth time. This is for whatever reason it's gone to Sydney time. So
Okay,
look,
that's fine.
after Arsenal, we have Bournemouth. Yeah. Now there's a break between that. You've got 14 days. Yes. That, in my opinion, if we do not pick up a result there, I know it sounds reactive, but I think that's when he should be sacked. And I'll explain why. Kate, if we were to persist with him for 10 games, and let's say we just survive this season by the skin of our teeth under Steve Cooper, how do you feel about next season in terms of evolution? Because I think the whole season and the next season will be riddled with mediocrity. We saw that he only won, I think it was 2 or 4 away games at Forest, and then he was sacked because it was the same thing the next season. He cannot build anything. He plateaus at this ugly football. And I know you might think that's reactive, but in my opinion, we need to think of the future. And you say that we all still have an Enzo hangover. Me and Anil have had an Enzo hangover since he's left. We still have not gotten over it. But you see that with the players. Now, why would the board not come in and get someone that plays, possession style football and controls the ball? The answer to that you could say is, well, look, we had no choice. No one wanted to come in because of the points deduction looming over our head. Do you agree with that? Do you think that again, it's too strong? And if we were to sack him, who would you bring in?
It's way too strong. I don't think you can judge a guy 5 games in based on what happened with Forest, who I hate, who recruited a small village and expected him to integrate it imminently without any power or say over the people that he recruited, and then expect results from quite a horrible owner, from what I understand. So it's a completely different setup and structure. I think these games coming up are absolutely crucial. Look, I'm not here to see results against Arsenal. I'm not here to see results against Spurs. I'm here to see results against Bournemouth, Southampton, Forest and Ipswich, because they're the games that are going to keep us up. But what I would say is, following through on whether you would get rid of Cooper or not, you've got to follow it through. We're only 3 months away from a very, very detailed recruitment situation that we had in June. So why would that recruitment process be any different now 3 months later? I think we're a bit arrogant to think that we'll have a load of applications. I think we're a bit arrogant to think we can go out and get who we want, because we can't. We don't have that power. PSR or not, Leicester don't have that pull. And I don't know why the recruitment process would be different now 3 months later. It wouldn't be. I saw someone mute David Moyes yesterday. David Moyes would be so expensive, and I'm not sure he's a surefire thing. Like, I think he's lost his appetite for the game. I think West Ham was probably his last big successful job, if you could call it that. So for me, you've got to think who you would realistically replace him with and how much would that cost. Or do you just back him, stop judging him what happened at Forest and see what happens? And that's, for me, is where I'm at. See where we're at after Ipswich.
You raise a fair point, Kate, about, all the players that he had brought in. But Anil, I know for a fact that you'll be thinking, well, Enzo Maresca definitely wouldn't have been behind the absolute army of players that Chelsea just signed, and he's already stamped his play style and authority at Chelsea. It was clearly evident against West Ham last night, and it was evident in his play style where players had to stand in their positioning in our preseason games when we had him. So could you not say the same thing for Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's objectively just true that, Cooper isn't as good a manager as Maresca. That's why Chelsea wanted Maresca and not Steve Cooper. But yeah, look, I don't want to get carried into it, because I think it is like he is still our manager. So I think it is a bit like facetious to already be like talking about who's gone. I think the one thing I will say to maybe counter Kate slightly is that we obviously were highly linked with Carlos Corberán in the summer, and we decided not to pay 4 million. And of course, who's top of the championship right now? It is West Brom, and they made a better start this season than we did last season, despite the fact Enzo had the most expensive squad and wage bill in championship history. So as it stands right now, yeah, things could change in 3 to 4 games time. And for what it's worth, I would make any change after the Ipswich run. I think at that point, that is 10 games played in the Premier League, and you'd have a much better indication. 10 games is normally when you can see where the teams are going to be shaking out. But for sure, if for example, if we were in the bottom 3 and West Brom were first in the championship at that point in time, it probably wouldn't have looked like the wisest decision you've ever made. Now, would he want to then jump ship from a team that might be looking up to come to us? Well, maybe he wouldn't. That's a fair point on the recruitment. But he was someone that it feels like, again, you get what you pay for, and we didn't want to pay that extra amount of money, and maybe we should have done. So that's just something to think about there.
Spot on. And Neil, mate, rant away, talk to me. In my opinion, it's a sackable offence in itself to not have played 1 minute with Ricardo Pereira. Talk to me, brother. How do you feel about that?
That kind of sums it up, in my opinion. He's one of the most. I think it's easier to list the positions he can't play, which is goalkeeper, centre back, CDM, and striker. Pretty much the rest of the positions on that pitch, he can absolutely play it exactly. Because not having him in the team is it's almost like not playing Jamie Vardy in terms of what he brings to the squad, how brilliant of a player he is. And
Kate also said, which is true, is that JJ has been at fault for quite a few goals. I mean, he got rinsed by NDI yesterday. So the thing is that like if you make a call like that, but a player that comes in is like playing sensational, that's fair enough, right? Like I can remember, like for example, at one point, right, when Mahrez first came to Leicester, we had Knockout, right, and they were sort of playing in similar positions. So you're like, well, you're not going to start Mahrez because you've got Knockout, right? But then as Mahrez kept playing more and more, you're like, do you know what? I'm not sure we do need Knockout in this team because this Algerian fella's not too bad, right? And then it keeps going on, and then the new person takes over and you haven't got a problem with it. But when you've got that lineup and you're thinking, haven't we got a better right back on the bench? Just saying, it's an even bigger issue, you know.
And Christensen hasn't looked. He had a good game, I think, against Spurs, and he's not looked the same since. So moving him over would really help in that position. And a couple of other things. Along with that, you look at the likes of Yannick Vestergaard last season. We didn't expect him to start or Konako to eventually come in. And everybody understood, well, Yannick keeps his position because he's better. Okoli's kind of doing it the same this season. He's seeing, okay, he's incrementally getting better and making decisions that I'm really enjoying so Connor Cody and Vestergaard aren't getting into the team because of Cody's keeping his position because he's been playing better. So you can understand that. But for me, not to be able to play him, even in this game, I think he could do a better job than Jordan Ayew going forward. So we could even put him on the right-hand side. The fact that, again, that's another conversation, but everything seems a bit too safe. And that's okay when you play against an Aston Villa, when you play against maybe potentially a Crystal Palace. Well, again, it backfired towards the end. We played it too safe. But against Everton, where we're supposed to go for them, and you look at that back line, they're playing James Garner at right back. They're playing Ashley Young at left back, who's a right-sided player.
And
That's
39.
an opportunity. Yeah, exactly. And there's a real opportunity to go, let's go for it. Let's show, especially at home, let's see what we can do and really go for it. And it was too slow and it started. And then by the time we're chasing games towards the end, and it just wasn't good. And Everton, to be honest, over the 90 minutes, had the better quality opportunities.
Do you not think, though, that the players have a lot to do about that? I don't think Cooper wouldn't have said anything you've just said there, Neil, before the game. He wouldn't have not said any of that we've got to be up for this, we've got to treat it like a cup final. And I think a lot of the methodical, slow build-up play that is cautious and not quite turn and go and turn and drive that you want to see and taking those attacking opportunities before the defence has a chance to reset itself is Ndidi. He's too slow. If you had someone there like a Buonanotte, for example, it's a different first half.
You know, okay, I've got to jump in and really disagree with you here because I've done some analysis, and I think if you look at it objectively, Ndidi's stats in that position, he performed much better than the other players that played in that position yesterday. There are a few moments where he had the ball, and don't get me wrong, he looked like he was wearing clown shoes, right? There was a moment in the first half where he was either trying to cross it or shoot, and I think he put the ball out of the stadium. But for example, the goal, he wins that header when it comes in from the corner. The amount of times he set it up, there was a back heel pass he did in the pouring rain to set up JJ for a cross to Vardy. He had much more expected threat and going forwards than any of the other attacking players. And I think, honestly, it's a bit of a thing that it's easy to say, oh, indeed, he's not good going forward. But you look at the underlying data and he's like the most effective player.
You watched the game live, and I'm telling you now, he is so slow. The problem is Winks is isolated because Winks can't pass to somebody because Skip wasn't there because Wilf isn't good enough on the ball. His second touch is a tackle nearly every single time. And yeah, he'll get it right and he'll look like Ronaldinho, but most of the time he gets it wrong. And he's so slow and poor on the build because he doesn't have an attack in mind. Jamie's off. You know, Mavadi's off.
I would ask you to watch the game again, and I think you would change your mind.
I think this every game. This isn't just yesterday. I think this every game. And like Palace last week, he'll have a diamond game out of nowhere because he's not a bad player, but he isn't a player to link defence to attack and create loads of opportunities. And I think that can slow the build-up play and make us look lacklustre because he's in such a crucial position in that pivot role, and he can't do it as much as we need him to.
So, Kate, do you think that Ndidi would be better as that you don't want him as the 10 or in the double pivot? Do you? Because the one thing I will say that we have like a lot of depth, in my opinion, in terms of the double pivot is we'll never see it anymore, but we've got Ricky P, Skip, Winks, and Ndidi. So they're all great options to rotate. But are you saying to me that you think that Ndidi would be good at neither because we need an out-and-out 10, and you think that on the ball
We
he's
need
not
a
good
ball
enough
player.
to play?
We need
So
someone
you
to
think-
release the ball from Winks and a ball player. Wilf is not a ball player.
So that
And
means
who
Skip
decided
and
to pick
Winks.
him?
He's not good enough on the ball. From what we've got, if we've got Skip, who's brilliant, and I think Ricardo could even come in and do that as well. So I just don't think he's good enough on the ball. But he will have diamond moments, don't get me wrong. But he can't pick up the ball and just go.
You think that Skip and Winks should be a double pivot and Buenote as our 10? What are your thoughts on that, Neil? There's merit. Sorry, just to quickly say this. There's merit in both what Anil and Kate are saying. I understand what you're both saying, and football's all about opinion. Anil, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Well, I've got quite a different opinion because I think overall Ndidi's probably been our best player this season. I think the amount of challenges that he wins, he's got the most assists, he gets us up the pitch. I think it's a bit lazy just to say because he looks a bit gangly that he's been poor. Whereas if you actually look at his overall effectiveness, looking at the stats, he's the most effective player we've got in the team. I think you have a really good point about him being next to Winks. I don't think that's his best position. And a change that we've made this season is that before, when we were building up, as Kate is right to say, it was Ricky P was literally next to Harry Winks. So what would happen is if either one received the ball, they had an immediate pass they could make sideways to the other number 6, or they could play it back to the defence, or they could play it around the corner or whatever. So what's happening is when we build up, you've only got Winks by himself. So it's easier for teams to kind of stop the build up in its initial phase. And there isn't someone to kind of like make the nice back to front movement. So that could be something that we change. And I think definitely if you're going to play someone alongside him in that position, you'd be better off playing either Skip or Ricky P in that position. But I think in terms of going forwards and being a box crasher, like, again, if you look at the stats from yesterday, he's like the second best statistical player for us after Steffi Mavadidi. So he's causing the damage up top and he's one of our best players in terms of going forward. So I would keep him in the team. I would keep him as one of the high attacking 8s. Maybe as the season progresses, if El Canoes starts turning it on, he could come in. I think Buonanotte is really good. I'm a bit disappointed he doesn't start games because I can't think of a single moment that he's come into the team and not made the team look better. But I do actually think that yesterday, him coming on changed the game, and him playing alongside Ndidi was what got us back into it, because then they both started pushing forwards and they took the whole team forward maybe 10 to 15 yards, and then we end up getting the goal that way. So yeah, I'm just going with what I see it. Rather than being subjective, you can judge that of any player if they're actually adding to the team or distracting from it. And indeed, he's literally one of our best players. Maybe the other one you could say is Mads, who's keeping us in games as well.
And Neil, for everything that you just said, I'll come to you with this, Neil. For everything that you just said, because I agree with you spot on what you just said, Neil, do you think that Ricky P could start on that right back position instead of JJ and have JJ on the left? And in possession, pushing up the pitch, you could have Ndidi pushing up alongside Buonanotte, starting that double pivot position, but then Ricky P slides in and takes his place alongside Harry Winks. If you get caught out in transition, it could be dangerous, could be too much moving around. And I'll ask you a good question to go over that as well after this, Kate, because you're actually at these games. But Neil, what do you think?
I think the double pivot, the inverted fullback that we played at Enzo just doesn't work in this system. If he is going to be playing, he's going to be playing either pushing into a 3 or going forward and actually joining in with the attack. He can play as a fullback. We've seen him do it plenty of times. And I think he's clever enough to play fullback. I think, when we played against last season against Leeds at home, and we were getting battered defensively, and Ricky P was saving us from pretty much everything in that first half, I remember. So I think the fact that we can't get him into the team, I think he can play in any position. He's not going to be a flying fullback, but he can do if you need him to. But he's good on the ball. He's good in technical spaces, and he can allow the ability to break in and play the ball out but that requires a lot of pressure, and kind of as Anil's mentioned before, we're kind of like the coward Cooper. That's where it kind of comes in a little bit as well, because you've got to be able to take that risk. And at times it doesn't seem like Enzo was all about risk. It was a lot of risk, a lot of reward, where Steve Cooper's like, well, risk a little bit, but then, okay, we'll play it safe again. And that playing safe just seems to punish us. And that's what as for example, playing Jordan Ayew is a safe shot rather than playing Abdul Fattah. What I don't believe is a safe bet, but he's a more riskier bet than a Jordan Ayew. And keeping him on for the entire game is another example of we're trying to play it safe rather than trying to, we're going to go for them. And this is against, again, half Everton with a lot of injuries, a lot of goals conceded, and a lot of players that are just hanging on or have been Premier League players of the past, not Premier League of the future.
Very bang on, Neil. Kate, you're at all these games. You see everything structurally. Pulling up Ant's comment here. Shout out to Ant. Whoever plays right back will be exposed because of Cooper's tactics, in my opinion. Now, we mentioned quite a lot, me and Anil, that like it was quite evident that Christensen we're going to have one of our fullbacks is going to advance further up the pitch and the other one's going to stay back. It's scary if you get caught out in transition, particularly, in my opinion, even worse than Victor Christensen, because as much as at fault JJ's been at some of these goals, Christensen can go absolutely missing tracking his man, and he scares me. And why he's playing over JJ and not have Ricky paying the right, I can't comprehend, but that's Cooper. But it's usually been down the left-hand side, and the last two games it's been JJ, but last week it's Everton, it was both of them advancing up the pitch. Now, I don't think that we're organised enough to be able to do that off both sides, and I think that if we get caught out, that like several times, I don't know what it was like for you, but several times I saw JJ and Christian swap over sides. I've seen Ayew do that to the other side. The positioning looks all over the place, and players are getting in each other's way. How do you feel being there live and seeing the whole pitch in person?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was interesting because what was the chap's name who was against JJ? He was just sensational. He was their man of the match yesterday. He was just, I think most people would have struggled to get a handle on him, especially the first half. He was just absolutely brilliant and deserved his goal. But yeah, I think there's just a problem down that right-hand side. I disagree with Neil. I think Jordan's actually been okay. I think every time I've seen Fatou, he looks a bit out of his depth. I don't want us to not push forward with him. He's 19 years old and he's got so many flashes of brilliance. But I'd like to see it be a bit more balanced, I think, with him and Jordan, not give Jordan the full match and nothing of Fatou at all until the real later stages when it's too late, because he is only 19. And from what I've seen, he just gets a bit too excited and loses possession in really stupid areas. And I think watching Jordan around the pitch is a bit more like Vardy. He kind of holds the ball up well. You can tell he's a seasoned pro. He wins fouls. He can make simple passes with relative ease, whereas Fatou just gets a bit overexcited. So just become a bit more balanced. I'm not saying all Jordan, but I'm definitely not saying all Fatou because he's 19. I think that was the same with El Canoes yesterday. We just got to give these guys a go. But he's only 20 and it was his first Premier League appearance. So we can't judge him on that. Hopefully he's shown it a lot yesterday, what he can and can't do. But yeah, I think we do. I personally would have JJ on the left and Ricky P on the right. That's their seasoned positions. That's where they play best at. And JJ just had a tough time yesterday and he didn't do anything about that. And I'd just like to see us become, but I say this about every manager, I'd like to see them become a bit more reactive at the right moments in the game, not just wait for the standard 60 minutes before making subs. Like I said to my mum yesterday, my mum came with me yesterday. I was like, no manager, she was like, oh, they'll change it at halftime then. I was like, no manager ever changed it at halftime. But why is that? That's every manager in the Prem, I think. But why do they do that?
Stubborn, aren't they?
It's really, really odd. I feel like there's a lot of Pep mentality and a lot of other managers' mentality that live in other managers' heads. And I'm like, just play your own game. Just if you don't think it's working at 45, flip and change it. But yeah, I think I would play JJ on the left and Ricky P on the right. I think that's their most established positions. And VK, I really like him. I love his energy. And again, he's only young and he's balancing out a bit in the Prem. And I think there's places for him. It's just, you just got to change it at the right moments in games, like bring Fatou on when people are tired. Mavididi was brilliant yesterday. I don't know whether he was absolutely flagging, which is why he got brought off, but he shouldn't have, unless he was flagging, he shouldn't have brought him off. He was causing all kinds of problems. He needed a minute to get his breath back, but you can buy some time with that and try and, not get the ball to him as much while he's just catching his breath. But yeah, there was a lot going on in those areas yesterday to talk about that could have been better.
Well, Kate, I agree, but do you not think it's criminal that Cooper keeps on persisting with putting Fatou on the left-hand side? For as excited as you say he gets, he's not a left winger. It's criminal to play him there. And then do you not think it's weird that we're playing an 86-year-old Jordan Ayew for a full 90 minutes over Mavididi, who alongside Winks played more minutes than anybody?
careful on the 86, mate. I'm about 8 years older than Jordan, so watch your mouth.
Sorry.
I thought Jordan played well yesterday, but obviously it's all about observations and you have your own. I thought Jordan did okay yesterday. Bringing Fatu on the left is just flipping ridiculous. You may as well have put him at centre-back. I don't understand why people do that. I think he would have been fine on the right. He should have pulled Jordan potentially. Jordan against Palace, I mean, that was another thing where Jordan, he could barely walk. And he makes that stupid challenge on the edge of the area against Palace because he was just so tired. There's certain players that managers are really stubborn about, and I don't get why he's one of them, because he wasn't even that expensive. So
what you're saying is Cooper's an idiot and Steve Cooper out. You're turning a corner, aren't you?
No, mate. You'll be ringing me up. You'll be calling me on the phone in 3 days' time, telling me to talk you off the edge of the cliff as usual.
And Neil, mate, why can we not go more attacking? Why can't we just play as we just described our best fullbacks, JJ and Ricky P, and why can't we start Winks and Mavididi in the same Mavididi and Fatawu in the same lineup? Why? We yet to see it. I'm convinced that Ricky P has had an argument. Do you remember when Sionsu couldn't get into the side, when we were screaming and Brendan Rodgers was trying to commit club suicide by putting Amati as a centre back over Sionsu? Why? Why is that?
You know what? I've got something. I'll bring this up, and it will kind of answer your question a little bit, but also add more to the conundrum, right? The biggest difference between Steve Cooper and Enzo Maresca is the number of players we commit when we attack versus how much we defend. So with Enzo, we had basically 2 banks of 5, and whenever we attacked with 5 players, and whenever we defended, we had 5 players, and that had pros and cons. The pros was we were more likely to score when we attacked, but also we were more likely to concede on the transition, like Sammy Schmodek's ruining the championship piss-up parade at the last game of last season. But here I'll give you an example, right? So look at where Jordan Ayew is, right? He started on the right-hand side, and look how far over he's come. Now, to be fair, he does invert in, and JJ plays past him as the right winger, but he's come all the way over to this part of the pitch. Now, fair play, because of the way that we're structured, Okoli's here, and he's going to play the ball into Ayew, and he gets it. So now Ayew's got the ball, and he's charging forward. But now the problem is because he's come all the way over, X marks the spot, there's no one here. Whereas if this was last season with Maresca, this would have probably been Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. This would probably be Mavididi. That would still be Jamie Vardy. And then this would probably be Wolfden Didi. And then on the other side, you'd probably have Fatawu. And so why it worked so well when we transitioned into the counter-attack is that this team would be like, oh my God, what do? We either stay with Vardy or go to this man or go to that man? And you'd end up scoring goals there. So that's one of the reasons why we're kind of struggling to be creative this season. And I think the issue is that I'll stop presenting now, but like it's fine to have it that like, okay, you're only going to attack with 4 instead of 5 because that way you're going to be more stable at the back when the ball gets turned over. But we're not more stable when the ball gets turned over because what's happening is that one of the fullbacks is pushing up and they're being caught out of position. So unfortunately, I'm just trying to be objective here. I feel like we're neither as good going forward nor as good defensively, despite trying to make a change that on paper should fix one of the two. Like, to be fair to him, Cooper, I would say that, like, if you look at Burnley last season, they struggled a lot. And one of the reasons they struggled is it was seen as saying, yeah, you're playing a style of football that works in the championship when you've got the best squad. But when every other squad in the league is better than yours, you can't play that way because you're making too many spaces and you're going to get caught. So, okay, I get that. In that case, when we go forwards, we're going to be a little bit more cautious, right? Don't know if you saw the fight yesterday, but Anthony Joshua tried to end it and he got ended himself, right? That's what can happen, right? So you don't want to go in swinging too hard. That's fair enough. But as I say, just looking at on the structural things, it's working neither way. And my suggestion would be to go back to what we were doing last season, because I think, you know, if you score more goals, you don't have to defend as much, right? Once you're 2-0 up, although we tried that and we still ended up making it 2-2. So maybe I'm going against what I'm saying, but there's something to be said there. But yeah, I think it's just the positions thing. And some of the examples I've got there as well, it's like, they're standing in each other's places or they're not really sure what positions to take up. To be fair, over enough time, people will get used to that, right? And that's about the coach on the training ground, blowing the whistle and saying, "Oh, sorry, Neil, you've got to stand over here. Sorry, Kate, you're standing there, but I actually need you to stand here. Do you understand why?" You take them out after training, you play back the match. Like I remember Bielsa did this thing where he'd give them like a laser pointer and they'd be like, "Okay, I want you to keep the laser pointer on you as the match plays." So like you keep concentrating and you realize when you're deviating, you can do things like this. But the thing is that Enzo had the team structured and playing in the right positions even in pre-season before game number 1 started. So I think it is concerning that like we're now 5 games in and you're still seeing some of those mistakes being made. But if he can persevere it and get it working, but I guess the problem is that what if you're really set on having a certain system, but the system is just garbage and it was never going to work in the first place? I'm not saying that is or isn't going to be the case, but for example, look at people in the comments, people saying that like we've been caught on the right hand side multiple times, or people have been standing in each other's ways multiple times, or Kate again saying Winks not having the builder next to him has been a problem in multiple games. It's like if these problems keep showing themselves, then is that not the issue? And we need to like get wiser and change it up slightly. That's what I think we need to do.
I spot on agree. Neil, I've got a good question first when against his comments because they're flying in. Skip was missed yesterday. Wolf, I don't get Cooper thinking against Palace. He's at ACM. Then at home versus Everton, bottom of the league, he's playing the first 5-10 minutes as a shield for DCL. And I don't think it's a coincidence in the last 3 games of this season. The man of the match has been the opposition's left wing. I spot on agree. Cooper waited till the 70th minute, felt like was waiting for Dyche to make the move. I actually have to disagree a little bit. And if you remember, Buonanotte was 55 minutes. And what Kate was saying before, why don't you make subs at halftime? You could maybe caveat that and say maybe the manager feels like he has a halftime to be able to speak and give instructions and then say, "Look, I need you to do this. This is where you need to stand. You're doing this wrong. I need you here. If you don't do it, I'm going to haul you off." Whether Cooper has the bollocks to do that, I don't think so. Now,
read that last comment from Anne. That's hilarious.
This is a good one. Ricky doesn't have the legs, but JJ does. That's JJ has all over him though. And then Richard says Ricky P has a brain. That is bang on. Great comment. Going from Enzo to Cooper is like going from Megan Fox to Susan Boyle. Look, what I want to, I'll come to you of this, Neil. I would love to see us play a back 3 again, the same shape we played last season, 3-4-2-1, 3-2-2-1, whatever you want to call it. I would love to see it, but I don't think Cooper has it in his wheelhouse to stand people and position them and have them be in the right laneways. As a good coach, you always say stick to your laneways, but I don't think he has that in his wheelhouse. But let's talk about Bilal quickly before we wrap this up. I'm not going to slate the lad. He's a young lad, but he was obviously struggling yesterday. I don't think he's an out-and-out 10. And if we were to say hypothetically be playing, under Enzo, and let's say Enzo was still our manager, and we still had to get rid of Keane and Dewsbury Hall, I think Buonanotte and Bilal would have been excellent as our high-pressing 8s. I think that would have really been exciting to see. I don't think Bilal should be playing in that 10 position.
So my thing since the beginning of the season said, with how Buonanotte starting, he deserves to start. And then as the time goes on, as he adapts to Premier League football, you slowly transition them over and you bring him in. And I think that's the best way to do it. For some reason, I just didn't. I'm not trying to get at him, but again, it was. I don't blame him. I blame the manager more than him. There was 2 other options in terms of you could play Wilfred Ndidi as a 10, you could play Buonanotte, and then probably the least likely is El Khanous at this moment in time. He's still got time to adapt as a player, as a young player, to adapt to Premier League football. Throwing him in against that, I don't think was the right time. I think eventually he will be trained into that 10 position, but at the moment he hovers between the 10 and the 8, and maybe even a 6 pushing back. So he's naturally playing his position. But again, that should be the manager to see that and go, look, it's not quite working. We don't need you in this position to play like a back 3 in midfield. We need you to go further forward, to bring in the Jordan Ayers, to create some space, bring in Mavididi on that left-hand side as well. So that is one thing. And even for, it's not completely bad. I mean, you look, for example, he's still playing Jamie Vardy. I think that Reed is a decent player, but he's not been getting any minutes recently as well. So again, he could go more defensive and bring on not put Mavididi and put Reed on the other side as well.
No.
So yeah, I think overall, if the best position is going to be that number 10. He's going to be the number 10, but he's one for the future. He's not one for right now. But that's going to take time to train him to get up to Premier League standard, which he's not at. But that's totally fine. But that's the manager for putting him in that early in the squad. But we've got other Premier League ready players in that position.
I spot on agree, Neil. Kate, I'll stay with this quickly, Neil. Does Bilal give you like young Tielemans vibes, like his positioning, where he is? Like he looks no.
No. The opposite. He's more attacking.
How young are you talking?
What's that?
How young are you talking? 3, 4?
I just don't think he's an
Savage.
I don't think he's an out-and-out 10. I just think that his positioning would be a lot better at setting play up rather than taking the ball, driving and shooting on target. And his stats would back that up, by the way, if you look at his stats. I know he's only young. Kate,
he's played like 5 minutes.
Well, he's played another game. He came on as a sub in another game. I just can't remember which one it was.
That's because we threw the kitchen sink and we couldn't afford Weeks to be a single pivot on his own. But I can't. And if you look at the stats in that game, he was playing more as a number 10. If I can bring up the stats from that game, he was playing more as a number 10. He was playing as basically 2-8. So Buonanotte one side and then El Khanous the other.
You know what? We had the Moroccan fan in the Matchday Live yesterday, and he's basically become a Leicester fan just for El Khanous. He's like, one of those Algerian fans. But to be fair to him, even he was in the chat and he goes, I want to apologize. Like, I've never seen him play this badly. Like, normally his passing's immaculate, and I was really excited. He's just like, this is not
do that Homer Simpson gif where he like slides into the book.
Yeah. No, but he was just like, even like, like what's gone wrong with him? He's normally like, so good, and he doesn't let passes astray. Yeah, I felt a bit sorry for him, but I agree with you, Kate, and that he should have been subbed at half time. I think a more aggressive coach, even like Mourinho, would have subbed him after half an hour. Now, that would have destroyed his confidence. So I get that. And I get the point that Luke's making is that maybe he didn't just want to, huff him off at half time, right? Because he's going to be like, really hurt with his confidence. But I just think that's 10 minutes wasted. And Buonanotte came on and the game was improved. What I will say,
you also see with other players that they have to earn their stripes a bit. Like you play the last 10 and then the last 20, and then we'll put you on at 60, and then we'll give you a start. Like it seemed a bit quick with him, and you just it can end up really backfiring. And he does look like a fish out of water, which he did yesterday. And you can't judge him on that, but it was just an interesting choice because you think of the normal protocol of getting a really young player to make his first Premier League start. That's not how it usually goes, is it really?
Yeah.
And for a manager that we bought in to bring up young players, that's not the way to do it. That's more of a more experienced manager that does that and go, well, why aren't you adapting? Where Steve Cooper is known for bringing up young talent, which Khanous can be a really good player, but he's got to be, as you mentioned, trickled into the system, and then eventually at 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then maybe in a half-time sub, or then he finally starts the game. So I just think it was a wrong move for him. And maybe he did play him to be a little bit more defensive. Again, playing devil's advocate.
We got the cup game, though. That's the game he should 100% be starting because there's a lot less pressure on it. But you're right. They're maybe putting him straight in for a relegation 6-pointer in a huge game. It would have been more sensible to start with Buonanotte, who's got like 50 or 60 Premier League appearances behind him. And it showed when he came on, like he just knew exactly what to do right away.
Well, to close this up, I don't buy into this. He's good with youth. And the reason for that is because we bought Golding, we haven't seen him, we haven't trickled him at all, hasn't featured. Will Alva should have gone on loan. That's a waste for his development, in my opinion. And for the way that we are structured and the way that we play, the identity is just not there. I just don't buy into that. I just think that he's an absolute donkey, Cooper, and I think he could eat an apple for a tennis racket. And if you needed an extra to be an orc on a Lord of the Rings set, he's your man. So am I Cooper out? Ask me after Bournemouth, but I'm halfway there.
You're not halfway there.
Yeah, that's not a halfway there speech.
Get off the fence. Get off the fence, Luke.
But I'm not alone here. There's plenty of comments here that would back me. That's brutal. Look, I will say this. My closing thoughts are I've never felt overly vulnerable under Cooper so far. I've never felt like we're going to get a pasting. But again, ask me that after the Arsenal game when we get absolutely violated.
That's a bit unfair, though, to judge him on. Yeah.
Bloody hell, we got hammered in the Premier League season at the Emirates. Got sent off, and it was an absolute disaster. So don't ever hang your hat on winning at the Emirates. Bloody hell.
No, but
whose side are you guys on, right? I bring you on here to pick on me.
But that's why we need the Ndidi Skip and Winks midfield. I think that's where that has to come into
Skip
play.
is great. Skip.
Well, what's the bet? That's the one game he doesn't do that in. You'd be like,
imagine.
what's he doing? Like he's got
Reverse Lenzo style.
all out
Let's
attack
go.
against Arsenal. What's he thinking? Yeah.
I would quite like that, to be fair. It's a free hit. You don't expect anything. So just go for it.
Go for it. And that backs Ant's comment up here. I'd rather take a pacing occasion and actually show a bit of balls. Guys,
Do you know what? That's a good comment. Just because I got to say, when the last time we were involved in the relegation battle during a Great Escape season, in my opinion, that's the biggest thing that Pearson changed. But like up until maybe February, we were playing games and we were playing not to lose rather than to win. And so we were staying in most games, and there wasn't really a single game where we absolutely got battered. But at the end of the game, we were like, "Oh, we're a bit unlucky, weren't we? Like we did good for 70 minutes, but we just didn't have the quality." And then I feel what happened is that the team just felt, let's just stop being sorry for ourselves and go for it. And if we lose, we lose, but we need to get 3 points to have any chance to win. And then we started winning games because the team was being way more aggressive. And we did still lose some games, but then that's when we got those like 7 wins out of 9 or something, didn't we? And we started beating teams. And a lot of those games were like really end to end and exciting. So, you know, he's got a point. I think to be fair, maybe we don't need to do that right now though, right? Because the table's still kind of shaking up. But yeah, yesterday, if you win that game, it's 6 points for a reason. The swings are massive. So, you know, I just hope at the end of the season, don't go down by 2 points. Like, damn it. If we'd have just like made, you know, we waited until minute 83 to put Eduard on. If you are going to put on Fatal, we're fine, but we did it on minute 90. Like, what are you really going to achieve at that point?
Just to play devil's advocate to that, if we do go down by 2 points, Jamie can't be missing that one-on-one against Spurs.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. There's going to be loads of moments, and I think about that miss a lot. If we'd have won that game, it's a different feel.
Yeah.
And that was the goal he should have took, and that isn't on Cooper.
Yeah, if Cody doesn't lose his shit and do a brain fart tackle.
Cody's stupid because we all knew last year that if Enzo didn't play him, he's going to get rustier and rustier and rustier and less sharp. And then he brings him on at a really important part of the game. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw a Premier League guy, but he's not played for a while. His reaction times are slower. And he makes a big mistake like that.
I agree. Guys, this final comment. This encapsulates him in a nutshell. Cooper is your man if you want the game to be close rather than wanting your team to win. That is precisely why, even if I think we survive this season by the skin of our teeth, I think we go nowhere. And it doesn't matter who we bring in, because sometimes we have our bench looks sometimes better than half our starting 11. Having Ricky P and Mavididi and Fatal on the bench for so many games was disgusting. Dakova Reed was a massive waste of money. He's also on my donkey list. Who's that donkey signing this season? Dakova Reed. At least he's not playing him. So I'm back all aboard the Cooper train again. Thank you, Cooper. I
love that summary. Loved it.
So, guys, any closing thoughts from you, Neil?
You've managed to talk about a player that's not even played in the last 3 games and called him a donkey.
Because he's shit. He's so
he's
shit.
Not even played.
Yeah, I wonder why.
At least he's not even giving you. He's no. It's like there's no point in criticizing. Do you know what it is? It's like people that I remember this happened before, where like, you know, where Argentina they won the Copa America and they went after they started talking about France. It's like, well, they're not even in the competition. I don't understand that mentality. Just leave them alone. But yeah, I don't understand, man.
I'm just stirring the pot. Don't worry. I just want to get a reaction out of you guys. Stirring the pot. Okay,
just what we need at 9 a.m. on a Sunday.
I'm all alert. I've had a coffee. It's 4:21 over here. I'm motivated right now. I'm here ready to slag someone off. Kate, why don't you give us a plug for your awesome blogs that you've been doing, by the way, for BBC, I believe it is.
Yeah, me and Chris have been sharing the BBC Sport blogs for the Leicester fan. Have your say, I think it's called. So that goes out every Tuesday. So keep an eye on it out there. I'll put it on Twitter as well. So last week I was covering the games most week. It's not exactly a match report. We just try and give a flavour of what some of the talk is on the terraces, really.
Well, Kate, you send that to me and I will put that in my description or in my video, and the same for Neil. Neil, plug your channel and also your Fox's Talk send to me, and I'll also plug that in my channel as well.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for having us. Let's try and hope that we get something out of the next few games. I'm a bit nervous, not going to lie.
There's nothing to be nervous about next Saturday. There's nothing to be nervous about. Just sit and enjoy that one, maybe.
I live 5 minutes away from the ground, so I'm just going to hear the goals go in from where I'm sitting.
And hear the Leicester fans cheer, yeah?
Yeah. Hopefully. You go into the game?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
not one of
brave.
my favourite grounds.
No, we could never win there. That's the problem.
Anything,
there.
It's a nice ground, though.
bonus. All
It's a
I ever
really
say
nice
is about,
ground.
all I ever say is about managers is learn from your mistakes. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you've got the fans on your back, and that's all you got. That's all you can ask. We're not going to be perfect. If we stay up by the skin of our teeth, it's mission accomplished. But just try and learn from your mistakes and play your best players.
Yep. Neil, closing thoughts.
Just stay
You wanna
up.
start, Hamza?
Yeah, pretty much. Just kind of stay up and see what happens. But yeah, at the end of the day, look, again, as Kate said, learn from your mistakes. We've got to also be proactive rather than reactive. And I think that's one thing that Steve Cooper has been more reactive, waiting for other people to make the move, and then I'll make a move to counter it rather than what can I do to really get this team. Because it's not like we don't have the players. We have the players. We have the opinion. Example of another player that needs to get more minutes, of players there that can play and can improve the squad, and fans can see it, but again, why can't the manager see it?
Yep. Why can't they see it? Free Ricardo, sack Cooper. He's evil.
They're going to be doing placards at the stadium for Ricardo.
I hope so.
Do you know what? If you could organise that, I would chip in for some money from that. That would get the message across if people did that.
A4 piece of paper each, and then all across.
Yeah.
Jamie signed it.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your comments. Sorry I haven't been able to bring all of them up, but it's hard to bring a bunch of comments up in between 4 people. Everyone, please go on ahead and subscribe to Beyond the 90. And that's a bannable comment right there. Subscribe to Beyond the 90. Like and comment and subscribe on my photo if you haven't already. And if not, it's all good. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good day. And hopefully we are not sitting here in tears after the Arsenal game. Take care.